First Alert meteorologist JD Disharoon here in Atlanta. We want to welcome you to our Georgia First Alert Weather Weekly show. We have Riley Hale here, who's the chief meteorologist out at WRDW in Augusta. And Riley, obviously, today our big stuff is going to be the wildfires that are across the state because we're starting to see that smoke. I know we're seeing it here in Atlanta. Are you seeing it, guys, out there in Augusta as well?
Just gotten continuously worse throughout the day, but yeah, pretty much every single tower cam we have around Augusta is just showing that smoky haze that's locked in place. And I mean, man, these wildfires down there in South Georgia are just absolutely massive. I'll just give you a quick look outside of some of our cameras here around Augusta. So this is looking over downtown, and you can see as you just kind of scan towards the horizon, it just starts to you just start to see that lower visibility out there. Another one that just up towards the lake at Clarks Hill Lake, the big lake here, you can see just kind of that haze off in the distance too. So it is once again impacting our air quality. JD, I don't know if you want to go ahead and get into some of these graphics, just kind of showing what's looking like across the state. But yeah, man, definitely smelling some smoke here around Augusta.
Yeah, and it's kind of, now that you mentioned the air quality, that's a great segue to the graphic I had ready for us. I mean, you guys right now are looking at a code red air quality in Augusta right now. I mean, your air quality is over 150, which is the threshold for that. We actually hit that earlier in the day. We've now since come down to a code yellow here in Atlanta, which is a moderate. That's actually pretty decent for a lot of folks. And it's all been for us dependent on the wind, as it is pretty much for everybody. So as soon as we get that strong southeasterly wind, our AQI, which is our air quality index, spikes. And that's when we're seeing our oranges and our reds start to come in. And you can even see down in Columbus, down in the Macon-Warner Robins area, over into Athens, they still have that air quality of orange. So here is the statistics. This was last hour, so obviously we've just gotten down to the yellow here. But last hour we were at 128. I will say when we do spike up, it's very quickly here in Atlanta, and it comes down just as quickly depending on that wind. So, 2 hours ago it was at 158. We were to code red. Now 128 last hour. Now we're down into yellow. So at least the fluctuations have been quick. So those of you who are suffering from allergies, those of you like myself who are, recovering from a respiratory infection, those of us who are in the unusually sensitive groups, we're seeing that at least the time we're supposed to spend indoors is not as long as we typically see on those days in the summertime when we have the ozone in here and it's kind of an all-day affair. But still, it's just been insane to see just how much some of this has been coming through. So, I kind of want to show out. So here's a map of the state of Georgia here. We have the little fire icons. These are where the major fires are. So these are not every brush fire. These are just the larger ones that we're seeing. So we got the one down in Brantley County. We have obviously the one down in Pinewood Road. Those are the two major ones. And you can see as we put the smoke forecast into motion, those two will flare up as we go into the evening and overnight hours. And then we'll get a break here in Atlanta, a little bit of a break for North Georgia. But then tomorrow, especially during the evening hours, once we get past sunset, we'll see we call it in the, meteorologists, we talk about our mixing layer, how much of the air has to kind of work and to move around. And as that lowers, it compresses the smoke, so we get higher values during the overnight hours a lot of times. And that's what we're expecting tonight and again for tomorrow night as well. What we're going to need is a front here to kind of move all of this out. We're going to need to get some rain in here. We're going to have to get that front to switch the winds around just a little bit. So it's, Riley, just kind of a lot going on and kind of snuck up on us, because if you looked at the air quality forecast for today, which they put out last night, we were expecting yellow, moderate today. We definitely were not expecting at all to see those conditions pop up into the red category.
Right, and it was a completely different wind direction yesterday, JD. We had more of kind of that northeasterly flow, which kept a lot of that smoke away from us here in central and north Georgia. But now that that wind direction has shifted out of the south-southwest, it's brought it towards us here. And I think since also these fires have grown tremendously over the last 24, 48 hours. So we're dealing with much larger fires now, which most likely also played a role to why our air quality once again has kind of been a lot worse than expected.
Yeah, and you're talking about those fires exploding. We're going to toss it. We have a package that is brought to us by WALB. So they're talking about the Pinewood Road fire And it's going to kind of give us a little bit. And I want to, point out when you're watching it, listen to some of these numbers because this was from earlier today before the update. And I'm going to update you exactly on what those numbers are afterward. And I think a lot of folks are going to be shocked just how much this fire has grown over 24 hours.
This fire broke out Saturday, April 18th on Pineland Road in Clinch County and has not stopped growing. It has expanded to over 7,000 acres. Residents are being urged to be prepared to evacuate as conditions worsen. The fire remains only 10% contained. Multiple agencies, including the Georgia Forestry Commission, local fire departments, and aviation crews have been constantly fighting the flames, made harder to control by drought and shifting winds.
It grew from a few acres Saturday to right around 4,000 or a little over 4,000 acres this morning, as is reported by Georgia Forestry. And they've been working pretty much around the clock since it was discovered to try to get it contained. But with our weather conditions and the drought conditions, it's just been spreading.
Officials sent alerts to residents in the Colon community between Headlight Road and Tiger Lake Road. No official evacuation order has been issued, but the warning has not been lifted. Resident Alonzo Pageant says timber spray also makes the fires hard to stop.
A lot of timber companies come in here and they'll spray all the underbrush and kills it, saying it's supposed to help, prevent wildfires from what I heard, but it don't do nothing but also ends adding fuel to the fire.
This is not the only wildfire burning in the region. Just across the state line, the Sargent fire, which spread from Florida into South Georgia, is now 81% contained. But officials warn the entire area remains dangerously dry, and people in Clinch County must remain vigilant.
Everybody in the area needs to be alert just to keep up with which way the winds are going, which way the fire's going, so that if it gets closer to their area, they're ready to act if needed.
As of now, no injuries have been reported, and residents and first responders tell me that all the community needs to do right now is pray, especially praying for rain. Taylor Lewis, WALB, your hometown news source.
Thank you, Taylor, there. Now, and right, we definitely need the rain, but typically, Raleigh, we wouldn't show you a package like that is slightly dated because those numbers were from earlier this morning. We got the update. And it was 7,000 acres, and I think she said almost 80% contained. Take a look at the graphic on my screen. This is as of this afternoon. It is over doubled in size, this Clinch County fire, Pineland Road, now over 16,000 acres. And what was once 80% contained is now only 10% contained because it has grown so large. So it just kind of goes to show you how dry we've been and how windy we've been that, we can see these fires spread so quickly, Riley.
Definitely so. That's the big critical part of fire weather is kind of how dry is your air, how dry is the fuel on the ground, and what's your wind going to be. And for them fighting the fire down there in South Georgia today, luckily it's not necessarily excessively windy, but there is just enough wind to kind of keep that fire going. But it's been hard to contain because we've had this shifting wind direction over the last couple of days. So the fire was kind of pushing towards the southwest yesterday, and now it's starting to push back further north and east as we're bringing back more of a southwest wind out there. So air's still critically dry across the state. We still have relative humidity down below 30% this afternoon. So, I mean, everything the fire wants, it has down there in South Georgia, where the drought is actually at its worst across the state right now.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, I'm going to touch on what you just said about the soil moisture and just show you exactly what's happened across the state this month so far. We're also going to check in with Chief Meteorologist Yolanda Amadeus down in WALB to see what the conditions are and the smoke are down there in the southwestern part of our state. welcome back to Georgia First Alert Weather Weekly. I'm First Alert Meteorologist J.D. Dishern here in Atlanta, Atlanta News First. We also have First Alert Chief Meteorologist Riley Hale. Sorry, I've got something stuck in my throat from WRDW. So we were talking about the air quality earlier. That's actually kind of one of the things that I'm dealing with. So I had a respiratory infection a few weeks ago. It's actually the smoke is giving me some issues today, so I do apologize if you see me cough or kind of take a little bit of break every now and then. So, because it just goes to show you, Riley, here, that like a lot of people are being affected by these wildfires.
Definitely so. People in and out of the station today have complained about this smoke and how they can tell just kind of the way they're breathing today, the way it feels in their throat. They can definitely tell that those conditions are out there. And JD was showing this just a little bit ago, but I'll kind of go back to our air quality outlook. We have special weather statements in effect across the state for this smoke that has really spread across most of Georgia, and it's lowering our air quality and also our visibility at times. Visibility down below 6 miles in a few spots. So many of our counties are underneath that special weather statement for that through this evening. And I'd imagine it just continues heading into tomorrow. But even some of our southern and eastern counties, this is actually on the Carolina side, they are actually underneath an air quality alert from that smoke that has just caused a lot of issues down there. We were talking about the wind before we got down to the break, and right now looking across the state, wind anywhere from 5 to 10 sustained. We're not necessarily seeing anything too gusty out there, so hopefully fire crews down there in South Georgia hopefully we'll be able to contain much more of this fire throughout the day. But as we were talking earlier, I mean, this thing has grown to over 16,000 acres. And looking at the drought monitor right now, you can see down there in South Georgia, well, they are in an exceptional drought. That is the worst drought you can be in. So no surprise, that's where we have those big fires that have occurred down there. A level 5 out of 5 right there. And for us here locally in the CSRA, we're dealing with severe drought in our northern counties, southern counties, but we technically do have just that one last little slither of Georgia that is underneath that normally dry and dodging the drought at the moment. But they're getting close, and I'd imagine with the new one that does come out tomorrow morning, will show that abnormally dry conditions have started to go away. But yeah, JD, unfortunately, just not great weather for those ongoing fires there across the state. And even south of us, we were talking about in Florida, they're dealing with wildfires too that are very large. So we desperately need some rain, and finally starting to look at some in the forecast by this weekend.
Yeah, we're going to touch on that in just a few minutes. First, we do want to check in, though, down with Yolanda down in Albany to see exactly how they're kind of dealing with this in their area, because they've been very dry as well. And even though they don't have a lot of fires there, they're starting to get that smoke into southwest Georgia.
Well, here across South Georgia, all of the area is included in that burn ban. No burning at all is allowed here across the area. And of course, the biggest fire is over Clinch County, and that is along and east of I-75. Actually, east of I-75, that is creating the really dangerous conditions across portions of our area. Now, in terms of just how dry it is outside, of course, farmers, they are in dire need of rainfall. The soil is extremely dry, only about 20% moisture there. But as you know, farmers can't even get their equipment in the fields because of the extremely dry conditions. Now, let me show you some of the rainfall amounts so far for the month. Our last official rainfall, beneficial rain, came on April 1st. And here in Albany, we did receive quite a bit, almost 3 inches, but other areas, especially Cordele, so far for the month, only 3/10 of an inch, just over an inch down in Moultrie, and Valdosta, just shy of 2/10 of an inch of rainfall, well below the average for the month. But remember that our drought conditions started last September, and each month we've had below average rainfall. It's going to take at least 10, in some places 18 inches of rain in order for this drought to come to an end. Now, the exceptional drought does cover our extreme southern counties, but that's just about half of South Georgia. where we see the dark shaded red coloring here, the exceptional drought that does extend into those areas where the fires are continuing to burn. That's Clinch, Eccles counties, as well as further off over toward Atkinson, Coffee counties. Extreme drought covers the rest of South Georgia. All of the area is extremely dry, and therefore rain is needed all across the area. Now, the wildfire danger remains high for the rest of this week, and with that no fire burn ban, that means that there should not be any campfires here, no burning, as well as no fireworks, and no burning period, as we are continuing with the extremely dry conditions. Now, I want to show you this first view 10 cam coming out of Albany, where we have the hazy, smoky sky. We're miles away from that fire, but of course the winds have shifted, and we are beginning to get those smoky conditions moving further off toward the west of I-75. There is a dense smoke advisory for Homerville. That is in Clinch County, where that fire is burning. Visibility down to under 2 miles, and that advisory extends until 10 p.m. If folks are in that area that are very sensitive to the burns there, probably need to stay inside, especially if you have allergies or you have asthma. Stay inside. If you have to go outdoors, then wear a mask. Here's what we are continuing to anticipate as we head into the weekend: about a half-inch of rainfall, and our rain chances will begin to arrive this upcoming weekend. Cold front heads our way. Well, our better chances arriving Saturday afternoon on into Saturday evening, and still some showers around on Sunday, although not quite as moderate to heavy, but we'll take what we can get, because it's going to take quite some time in order for these drought conditions to gradually ease. Here's our look as we move on through the next 10 days. Now, still the hazy sky for most of South Georgia on Thursday. Once we get into Friday, moisture starting to return. We're still unseasonably warm with our temperatures running mid to upper 80s, and here comes our best chance of rain since the beginning of the month, and that comes in Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. Still some showers around on Sunday. We briefly dry out on Monday, and looks like we pick up a bit more active and weather pattern getting through the rest of next week, and that's mainly due in part to a number of disturbances moving across the region, and also the sea breeze begins to get a bit active. Also, we've been under the influence of high pressure for quite some time. That has kept us extremely quiet as well as very dry, but that high begins to push further off toward the east and allow moisture to start to return. So we are looking at somewhat better chances of rain as we end out the month of April and begin the month of May. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. You know, we were all talking about just how dry it is. And before we go to our next break, Riley, I kind of want to get your opinion on this, because I haven't really seen this before. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at soil moisture. So this is going to be specifically the top 15 inches of soil. So this is going to be just the surface layer. We're not going any deeper than that. This was April 5th. So we're talking the beginning of the month here. And this is a daily map. So it's going to be highly influenced by the kind of rain that we see, even if it's a small one. So this was towards the beginning of the month. This is when we had those Easter rains moved in, which for us here in Atlanta, and I think maybe for you in Augusta, Riley, you'll have to correct me on it. I think that's the last time we had significant rain. This last weekend, we didn't really get some. This is what it looks like now. That's a lot darker. Pretty much the entire state is at the 5th or less percentile, with just folks in northwest Georgia and then folks down along the Atlantic coast seeing a little bit better, you know, still well below average. But, you know, it just goes to show you, like, when we talk about how dry the ground is, you know, we're talking 0 to 2 in the percentile, which is not just dry, not just absurdly dry. This is insanely dry, to the point where, as we're seeing with these fires down there, you know, this is pretty much the reason, in addition to the wind, that all of the ground is kindling. There is no moisture in the soil that we can deal with.
And another thing to add to that, JD, is all the debris left over from Helene back in 2024, especially for our area. There is just so much fuel on the ground right now that if anything that starts is just going to continue to grow exponentially. So yeah, absolutely. I've never seen it be that dry across the state with soil moisture. That was crazy to see, just the difference over a short time frame like that. But it also factors in, once the ground gets this dry, say we get into a better pattern to maybe see some heavier rain, well, the ground's not going to be able to absorb that water as efficiently, and you get more likely to see kind of some flash flooding occur with that too. So yeah, not good. That was very surprising to see that map you just had, JD.
Yeah, and you know, the good news is we are getting rain in the forecast, but it's kind of like you just said, it's a catch-22. We can't get too much at one time. Thankfully, not looking quite like that. We're going to take a break now, but when we come back, I definitely, you know, we're talking about the rain. It's finally in the forecast. We need it, but how much are we going to get, and is everybody going to see it? Because it doesn't look like everybody in the state, unfortunately, is going to see the moisture. Welcome back to Georgia First Alert Weather Weekly. I am First Alert Meteorologist J.D. Dishern here at WANF in Atlanta. We're joined by First Alert Chief Meteorologist Riley Hale over at WRDW in Augusta. And we've been talking so much about the fire and then the dry air because that's been the big story today across the state. But I don't want to forget, we're happy, Riley, we finally have rain coming back into the forecast.
Finally, JD, it's been a long time. You brought this up a little bit earlier, but yeah, the last time we saw measurable rain here in Augusta or really anywhere in the CSRA was April 5th on that Easter Sunday. So it has been a good while, but we finally do have some rain in the forecast. Here's a look at the Weather Prediction Center's just 7-day rainfall outlook and looking at potential rain totals. For us here locally, we're expecting at least the chance for rain, but unfortunately, we're not going to get as heavy a rain as, say, they will in Atlanta or up in North Georgia. But we're expecting our rain chances to really start ramping up, most likely as we head late into the day on Saturday, even most likely even Saturday evening, Saturday night. And then this is going to be driven by a front that will try to pass through the region, and ahead of it we'll kind of see just a broken wave of showers and thunderstorms. And then that front is expected to stall close to the Georgia-Florida state line and be somewhat of a factor for us possibly heading into Sunday and early next week before another system moves in next Tuesday. So I would say if you have outdoor plans here locally around our area, don't cancel them just yet, especially if you have them on Sunday. It looks like as far as rain chances go, we'll be relatively on the lighter side Sunday compared to Saturday. But the good news is, as we look kind of further out into the forecast, Yolanda also just mentioned this, that it does look like we are going to get into a little bit more favorable weather pattern to see some rain chances increase as we do close out the month of April and start off the month of May. So this is good news to also see our upper level pattern is finally going to be shifting a little bit. It's been somewhat stagnant and hasn't really been advantageous for us to see too much rain here locally here recently. Here's a look at us just for the month so far. So we're on about day 16 now, I believe, without any rain. So yeah, it's starting to get very, very dry. And for the year, I mean, we're getting close to 6.5 inches below average just for the year. And we entered the year about 10 inches below average for all of 2025. So we desperately need some rain. Luckily, it is in the outlook heading into the weekend. It's just out of view of our higher resolution kind of in-house models, but I'll show you what the European model has heading into the weekend. So front starts to push in as we head into Saturday. I would say for us here locally in Augusta, we most likely stay dry up until lunchtime, and then we start to see better rain chances into the afternoon and portions of our Saturday night. And then this front gradually just kind of stalls out somewhere south of us as we get into Sunday. So depending on where that ends up, that could possibly play into some rain chances to close out the weekend. But yeah, we desperately need more rain than what's in the forecast, but we will take what we can get at this point.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we're kind of noticing is that when we're getting the rain chances in here, it's not just making its way all the way down to where the fires are, which is the unfortunate part, but the front is stalling out. There is more chances of rain as we head into the beginning of next week. So as we kind of take a look, I'm going to stick with the European model here, and we're going to continue to see the potential for a little bit of moisture. So this is heading up to noon on Monday. So this is the beginning of next week. Notice we have this system coming in from the west, and it's going to give actually a pretty good severe weather threat for folks out to our west. So when we're talking like the mid-south and down in towards Arkansas, the Memphis area, they have a really good shot of seeing some severe weather with this. Obviously, our dynamics here in North Georgia not going to be quite as dramatic as what they're going to see out to the west, but we're still going to keep our eye on it for the potential of maybe at least a strong storm, maybe even a possibly severe storm Tuesday morning. But watch what happens again. It kind of makes it down to the south, but it just kind of fizzles out. And I'll kind of go and pull it back just a little bit. So you see by 4 p.m. Tuesday, it's starting to get down towards Savannah, starting to get towards the fires, and then it just kind of peters out just a little bit and starts to shift the energy off to the coast. So I don't think it's going to be as big of a rainmaker again for South Georgia, but one of the things to look at is another round of rain starts to come in after that. I'm not going to go too far out here. I don't like to go out, more than 7 days. But the one thing that I am noticing, Riley, on some of these models is that as each system is coming in, and we've got more in the extended forecast, even through the beginning of May, it is slowly making its way a little bit farther and farther south. So overall, we are looking at some, pretty decent rain chances, obviously for North Georgia, but finally starting to see that moisture slowly but surely make its way in towards South Georgia as well. Just going to take a little bit of extra time there. Notice the forecast for the metro Atlanta area. We're warm as we head through the end of the week, and then the weekend, we cool things off with a rain chance Saturday and then another on Tuesday. But, at least now, it's just so nice to see, even if it's a 20 to 30% chance of rain, it's so nice to see even these low chances of rain return to the forecast, because it's just something we haven't seen for a while, and it's promising that outlook that you showed continues to have at least an above, better chance of seeing some rain than what we have been seeing as well.
Definitely so. That's the thing. We're just looking for a more favorable pattern at this point, and it looks like we will transition to that. And just a quick look at our 7-day or 10-day outlook. I had the 10-day pulled up, but we are looking at our rain chances potentially. Maybe we could see a stray shower Friday afternoon. Not expecting that to be a huge threat for most spots, though. But Saturday, kind of later into the afternoon, evening time, we'll be tracking the chance for storms. Maybe another isolated storm Sunday. And then, as JD was just showing, we got another system Tuesday, and then most likely another one kind of later into next week and possibly even to next weekend. So we like the setup. We like to see some rain chances out there. We would like to see a little bit more in the rain totals department, but hey, we'll take every drop. And it does look like at least we will get into a more favorable upper level pattern, kind of get rid of this upper level ridging that's just kept us very hot and dry here recently, because that's another factor to this, that not only have we been dry, but we've been getting close to record high temperatures. I mean, last week here in Augusta, I think we were within 1 degree of a record high, like 3 or 4 days straight. We saw our first 90-degree day of the year. A little bit early for us. We usually don't see that till early May, but yeah, hot and dry, not good for this drought, but luckily it does look more favorable for some rain as we get later into the outlook.
Yeah, and Riley, normally we start off the show a little bit on a lighthearted note, talk about what we did on the weekend. We kind of eschewed that just because of all the things that are going on. But before we leave, let's end it on a lighter note. Do you have any fun weekend plans? What do you got going on this weekend? And is weather going to affect any of that for you?
Well, actually, this weekend, a rare weekend, I'm going to be out of town, actually heading to Nashville. Got a buddy that's getting married, so we're going out for a trip with him. And we were looking at the severe weather chances that they potentially could see across portions of the Mid-South. It looks like Nashville hopefully will dodge the worst of it. It is expected to kind of push through later Friday night and get out of there by early Saturday morning. So we're hoping it doesn't impact our plans too much. But how about you? What do you have planned for the weekend?
I actually also have a rare out-of-town weekend, so maybe we'll cross paths on the roadways. I'm heading out to Wilmington, North Carolina, to see my husband's family out there. We're going to spend the weekend with them. So I was looking at some of the forecasts for them, and it looks like while we have the front moving through here to help us, it's just going to shuttle all of that wildfire smoke up in their direction. So I think I'm going to be I'm going to be using the inhaler for a few more days until we can get back here in Georgia.
Yeah, I'm hoping it can improve. But Wilmington's beautiful. My wife's family, they actually have a place in Topsail,
Yes.
North Carolina, just a little bit north of Wilmington. And it's beautiful there along the North Carolina coast.
Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. Hopefully we can get some warm, nice little ocean day in there before we head out. Riley, I appreciate you coming in with us today. We'll see you next week. Hopefully we'll get Yolanda back in and our WTOC station in here as well. But for everybody who is joining in, on behalf of Riley and myself, thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you again as we head into the next 7 days.
And as we continue our coverage here on an Atlanta News First Plus, I just want to show you some of the video that we've gotten over the past few days, taking you through really the situation in South and Middle Georgia as we're following these wildfires that have now burned through over 5,000 acres just in Brantley County, dozens of homes being impacted. I think yesterday we were telling you a total of 16,000 acres have been burned, and that number is growing as containment efforts continue to be underway. And we actually want to talk to our Atlanta News First anchor, Victor Williams here, who is in Brantley County. You are on your way to what is going to be a news conference from officials updating everyone on the latest situation. What can you tell us?
So right now you also see a lot of haze in the air, a lot of smoke from those wildfires, but a lot of people have been evacuated. You guys know that this is affecting a lot of people. Just like you said earlier, we're talking about over 5,000 acres damaged, as well as over 40 homes destroyed as well. So that's all because of this fire. And last night, the issue mainly was the fact that the wind was blowing so hard here that it was carrying those flames. And so that's why evacuations were so important, because that wind was carrying those flames right in the line of several homes and communities nearby. So we're hoping for a better update in the next few minutes. Just like you said, we're going to be there at noon. So we're hoping at this point that it is still the same situation in terms of no fatalities, because with those flames being as dangerous as they are, we know that this could have been a lot worse. But thankfully, because of the first responders and the crews working so hard to get everyone out to safer ground, it looks like things have been okay so far. And once again, we're hoping that's still the case. But Really, this has just been horrible for this area with so much destroyed. You can't really see the haze as much right now from where we are, but when I woke up this morning from the hotel, you could smell it just walking out of the building. You could also see it in the air. And so I feel like that has dissipated just a little bit, but still, you could really imagine what this is like for the area, especially where all those flames are. So we are hoping that those flames are out. We cannot get as close as we want to the flames because of safety. So we're going to be trying our best to give you guys some visuals. But as of right now, like we said before, the situation still stands with this fire taking place, multiple fires right here in Brantley County.
Victor, we were just showing some viewer-submitted videos out in Brantley County that's really showing the extent of the situation. I know that you guys made your way down there yesterday. I do believe we might have just lost Victor. Hopefully he'll pop back up here for us. But in the meantime, I just want to show...
Still there?
Oh, I got you. I got you again.
Sorry
Signal's
about that.
going in and out. I do know that a main area of concern was Pineland Road fire in Clinch County, and then the Highway 82 area in Brantley, where you guys are at. Let me know if you've lost my audio there, Victor. All right, we're going to try to get Victor back here. I do believe, Victor, we can see you. We don't have your audio quite yet. All right, folks, we're going to take a brief commercial break. When we come back, we're going to really get into the situation out in Brantley County. Again, we are anticipating a news conference from officials down in South Georgia and Middle Georgia talking about their firefighting efforts and the work that it's going to take to contain this. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Atlanta News First Plus as we continue our coverage, bringing you the latest of what we're learning out in South Georgia, where the wildfires are currently located about 200, a little over 200 miles southeast of Atlanta, are burning at a rapid pace, and there are ongoing around-the-clock efforts to bring those flames down and make sure that everybody is continuing to be safe. So far, we've received no reports of injuries. We have seen people being asked to evacuate their homes, to have action plans in place. And we're actually going to check back in here with our Atlanta News First anchor, Victor Williams here. You are in Brantley County. You're on the way to what is expected to be a news conference from officials. Just wanted to check in with you. I know you guys got into the area yesterday. What has been the communication with the affected residents, with the responders, and just the general energy down there?
Well, really, there's a sense of community here, and I will say that it feels great to see everyone kind of coming together in a time like this, especially where things are very uncertain. But a lot of people, of course, in this community have been told to leave their homes because of this fire. Now, some people had a little bit more time than others. From what I understand, some people were forced to leave at the drop of a dime because those flames were so dangerous and so close to their homes. Some didn't even have any time to gather their belongings. So we spoke to one person last night who was thankful that he at least had about 2 hours to get his belongings together. But once again, others did not. So there is a sense of people, like I said, trying to take care of one another in this area because it's a very small town here in Brantley County, or a very close-knit community, I should say, instead. But everyone is trying their best to also stay positive because the fact that there have been no fatalities or any injuries, a lot of them believe that that's a miracle in itself and also a blessing.
I know, Victor, Highway 82 is right now a major concern for the county. They're reporting that about 5,000 acres have been burned in that area, and that has, as you mentioned, prompted evacuation, school closures. The community is affected at this time. I'm curious, as you guys were driving from Atlanta to southeast to Brantley County, at what point you started seeing that haze and kind of getting a clearer picture of the situation?
We probably saw that haze about an hour out from our destination yesterday. So we were wondering when we were going to see that, because all the way back in Atlanta, there was a little bit of a haze because of the fire. So we were expecting to see it a lot sooner. So I'm thinking more than likely that wind carried the smoke and the haze away. But as we got closer and closer, we started noticing it being a lot thicker than we thought originally. So that haze is now sort of, like I said, died down a little bit. But still, you can imagine it's not the best thing to be breathing in, especially with that air quality.
Yeah, I'm glad you point out that air quality. That's affecting us up here as well. And there's burn ban notices. I mean, we are talking about a widespread impact. Victor, I really appreciate you hopping on with us. I know that you will be providing reports throughout the day for Atlanta News First on air, as well as for our digital platform. So I'm going to let you get to that news conference. We will stream that live for everyone on Atlanta News First Plus. I just want to show everybody the situation that really was in the initial moments that we were reporting this to you out in Clinch County. This was the scene. You can see the extent of those flames and just the amount of effort that it took to bring that fire under control, and that effort continuing on into today. We were talking about this breaking out about a little over 48 hours ago, and now those efforts turning to containment and making sure to keep the community updated, to evacuate the affected residents. And it sounds like, from talking to Victor, that they are holding their heads high. They are trying to support one another, look out for their neighbors, and that is about all that you can do in a situation like this. So we, of course, are going to monitor everything. We're going to take you to that news conference, expected to begin at noon. So you can join us right here where you're watching on Atlanta News First Plus. You can go to our secondary channel where we will have that news conference in full for you. You can also download the Atlanta News First app. That is a fantastic resource when we get breaking news and developing stories like these, especially if you know someone, you have a loved one in that community, and you want to make sure to pass along information and stay in the loop. We will send major updates and notifications on live streams to your phone so you can click and join and you don't miss a thing. We're going to keep it right here. When we come back, Atlanta News First News at noon on our primary channels, as well as an update from Brantley County officials coming up on our secondary. Stay with us.
Thank you for watching ANF Plus. For more breaking news, live coverage, and your community stories, download the Atlanta News First app. You can also watch us on YouTube, Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. To join the conversation on YouTube Live, visit our channel and hit subscribe. You can also listen to the Atlanta News First podcast by searching Atlanta News First on your preferred listening platform.